Hello and welcome to Insomniac Histories. Imagine standing in a dark underground chamber beneath a massive stone amphitheatre. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, blood, and fear. Around you are men preparing for battle, checking their weapons, adjusting their armor, and saying what might be their final prayers. Above your head, you can hear the roar of 50,000 voices, a sound like thunder that shakes the very stones. They are chanting, screaming, demanding blood and spectacle. In a few moments, a gate will open. You will walk up a ramp and emerge into blinding sunlight, into the arena, into the sand. You are a gladiator, a professional fighter, and today you will face another man in mortal combat for the entertainment of the Roman mob. You may win glory, wealth, and the adoration of the crowd. Or you may die here, your blood soaking into the sand, your body dragged away by hooks. Just another casualty in Rome's endless appetite for violence. Tonight, we will step into the brutal and fascinating world of the Roman gladiator. We will explore what it truly meant to be a fighter in the arena. From the moment of enslavement or recruitment through the grueling training, the terrifying combat, and the strange contradictions of a life lived on the edge of death, yet sometimes touched by fame and fortune. This is not a story of heroes and glory, though glory certainly existed. It is a story of survival, of desperate men fighting in a system designed to entertain a civilization that measured its greatness partly by the scale of its bloodshed. But before we enter the arena, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It's a simple and wonderful way to support the channel, and it means a great deal to me. I'm also always curious to know where in the world and at what time you're joining me tonight. So I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. And now, settle in. Let the noise of the modern world fade away, and let us travel back to a time of sand and blood, of triumph and death, and of men who fought and died for the pleasure of Rome. Our story begins not in the arena, but in the moment when your fate as a gladiator is sealed. There are several paths that lead to the gladiatorial schools, and none of them are pleasant. You might be a prisoner of war, captured on one of Rome's endless frontiers. Perhaps you fought for one of the Germanic tribes beyond the Rhine, or you were a rebel in one of Rome's provinces. When your people were defeated, you were chained and marched hundreds of miles to Rome, or one of the other great cities of the empire. The Romans have always believed that defeated enemies should be put on display. Their humiliation, a demonstration of Roman power. In earlier centuries, such prisoners might simply have been executed, strangled in the Tullianum prison beneath the Forum as the climax of a triumphal procession. But as Rome grew richer and the appetite for spectacle increased, a new fate emerged for the strongest and youngest prisoners. They would be sold to the gladiatorial schools, the ludi, where they would be trained to fight and die for Roman entertainment. Or perhaps you were a slave, born into bondage or sold into it for debt. Your master, needing money or simply cruel, sold you to a lanista, a gladiator trainer and owner. This was considered a terrible fate, even by the standards of Roman slavery. Most slaves could hope for eventual freedom, and many were treated reasonably well by their masters. But to be sold to the arena was to be marked for death, to be pushed to the absolute bottom of Roman society. Or perhaps, most strangely to our modern minds, you volunteered. Yes, free Roman citizens, Men who had every right and privilege of Roman law sometimes sold themselves into gladiatorial service. Why would anyone make such a choice? Desperation, usually. If you were deeply in debt, disgraced, or simply without prospects, the gladiatorial schools offered something: a signing bonus, regular meals, shelter, and the slim possibility of glory and wealth. The contract you signed, the Octoramentum, was a terrible document. You swore an oath to your Lanista. I agree to be burned with fire, to be shackled with chains, to be beaten with rods, and to be killed with iron. You agreed to endure any punishment, to surrender all rights, and to accept that you might die in the arena. For a free citizen to take this oath was considered shameful, a voluntary surrender of the dignity that came with Roman citizenship. And yet, men did it. Whatever your path to the gladiatorial school, you arrive in chains or in shame. Let us imagine you are taken to the Ludus in Capua, south of Rome, one of the most famous gladiatorial schools in the empire. This is where Spartacus himself trained before leading his famous revolt in 73 BC. The school is a prison, make no mistake. It is surrounded by high walls. Armed guards watch from towers. Inside, the facility is built around a central training arena, a smaller version of the great amphitheaters where you will eventually fight. Around the training ground are barracks, armories, medical facilities, dining halls, and cells. The cells where gladiators are housed are small, perhaps 10 by 12 feet, with a single barred window high up the wall. You will share this space with one or two other men. There is no privacy, no comfort, just stone walls, a hard sleeping bench, and the knowledge that you are property now, no longer fully human in the eyes of Roman law. The first days are brutal. You're examined like livestock. A physician, the medicus, checks your body for injuries, disease, or defects. If you're judged too weak or sickly, you might be rejected, sent to a mine or quarry where your life expectancy will be measured in months. But if you are strong, young, and healthy, you are valuable. A trained gladiator represents a significant investment for the Lanista. You will be fed well, given medical care, and trained intensively. The Lanista is a businessman, and you are his product. Your head is shaved. You are branded with a mark that identifies you as property of the school. And then your training begins. The training master, the doctor, is a former gladiator himself, a survivor of countless battles. He is harsh, brutal even, because his job is to turn you into a killer and to keep you alive long enough to earn back the investment made in you. The training is exhausting and painful. You begin with the rudies, a wooden practice sword, heavier than a real weapon to build strength. Hour after hour, day after day, you practice basic movements. The thrust, the cut, the parry, the step, and the dodge. You strike at a thick wooden post, the palace, embedded in the ground. You attack it from every angle, learning to deliver killing blows with precision and power. Your muscles scream. Your hands blister and bleed. But you continue. There is no alternative. If you refuse to train, you will be beaten, starved, or simply killed. The Lanista has absolute authority over you. Some gladiatorial schools also had an unusual training tool that might surprise you. Archaeological evidence from Pompeii and other sites shows that gladiators followed a special diet. They were called hordeari, barley men, because their diet was heavy in barley and beans, relatively little meat. This diet made them put on weight, a layer of fat that provided some protection against superficial cuts, and made them look more impressive in the arena. This was spectacle as much as sport, and appearance mattered. As your training progresses, you are assigned to a specific type of gladiator, a fighting style with its own weapons, armor, and tactics. This assignment is based on your physical build, your skills, and sometimes simply the needs of the school. Let us imagine that you are designated as a Mamilo, one of the most common and prestigious types of gladiators. The Mamilo is a heavily armed fighter, designed to represent a Roman legionary. Your equipment is carefully chosen. You are given a gladius, a short stabbing sword, similar to what Roman soldiers carry. The blade is about 20 inches long, designed for thrusting rather than slashing. In your left hand, you carry a large rectangular shield, the scutum, made of laminated wood and covered with leather and linen. It is painted with your colours and symbols, a declaration of identity. Your right arm and shoulder are protected by a manica, a segmented metal sleeve. Your left leg, the one that leads in combat, is protected by a metal greave, an ochrea. You wear a wide leather belt, the baltuz, to protect your midsection. But your torso is largely unprotected, bare or covered only with a light tunic. This is deliberate. The Romans want to see flesh, want to see blood. The armor protects the areas most likely to receive a disabling blow, but it leaves plenty of vulnerable targets. Your helmet, the gallia, is a work of intimidating art. It is made of bronze or iron, polished to shine in the sun. It has a wide brim to protect against downward strikes, and a face guard with small eye holes. The top is crowned with a crest, often decorated with feathers. When you wear this helmet, your face is hidden, your identity erased. You become a symbol, a fighter, a thing rather than a person. You train against other types of gladiators, learning the strengths and weaknesses of each fighting style. As a Mamilo, you will most commonly face a Thrax or a Hoplomachus, lighter, more mobile fighters with different weapons and tactics. The Thrax carries a curved sword, the Seeker, and a small square shield. He is fast and aggressive, trying to get around your large shield and strike at your unprotected areas. The Hoplomachus carries a spear and a small round shield. He will try to keep you at distance, jabbing with the spear, forcing you to close range where your sword becomes effective. Each matchup requires different tactics, and you must learn them all. The training is not just physical. You also learn the performance aspects of gladiatorial combat. The arena is a theatre, and you are an actor in a violent drama. You learn the proper way to salute the sponsor of the games, the editor, when you enter the arena. You learn how to play to the crowd, how to raise your weapon in triumph, how to gesture for mercy, and how to die with dignity if it comes to that. Yes, you are taught how to die. If you are defeated, and the editor decides you must die, you are expected to kneel. Grasp the thigh of your victor, and accept the killing blow without flinching or pleading. This is the gladiatorial code, and maintaining this dignity is crucial. A coward who begs or tries to flee will be remembered with contempt, his name cursed. But a man who dies bravely, accepting his fate with courage, will be honored, his name recorded with respect. The months of training are grueling, but they also create bonds. You train alongside other gladiators, men who share your fate. You eat together in the dining hall, simple but plentiful meals of barley porridge, beans, vegetables, and occasionally meat. You sleep in adjacent cells. You share the same fears and the same slim hopes. Friendships form, And these relationships are perhaps the only source of human comfort in this brutal existence. Some gladiators even form familiar, sworn brotherhoods not unlike the criminal gangs or military units. These bonds can be deep and lasting, though they carry the terrible knowledge that one day you might be ordered to fight and kill your closest friend. The gladiatorial schools also have an unexpected feature: women. Not female gladiators, though these did exist in small numbers, but rather female slaves or prostitutes who live at or visit the school. The sexual appetite of the gladiators is something the Lannister must manage. Men living in constant danger, men who might die tomorrow, seek comfort and pleasure when they can. Some gladiators are renowned for their sexual exploits, and there are even records of upper-class Roman women, married and respectable, sneaking into gladiatorial schools to sleep with famous fighters. To these women, gladiators represent something forbidden and exciting, a dangerous sexuality that their refined, toga-clad husbands cannot provide. This is deeply scandalous, but it happens nonetheless. Finally, after months of training, you are ready. Word comes that games are being held. A wealthy magistrate seeking to win political favor has sponsored Munera, gladiatorial games, to honor the memory of his father. Or perhaps the emperor himself is holding games to celebrate a military victory. You and several other gladiators from your school will fight. The night before the games, there is a public banquet, the Cena Libera. This is a strange tradition, a final meal where gladiators eat and drink in public, on display in the city. Citizens come to stare at you, to assess your physique, to place bets on your chances of survival. Some gladiators eat with gusto, determined to enjoy what might be their last meal. Others cannot eat, their stomachs knotted with fear. You try to eat, to keep your strength up, but the food tastes like ash. Around you, the crowd points and whispers. You hear fragments of conversation. That one looks strong. The Murmillo is favored. I'll put 10 denarii on the Thraex. You are not a person to them. You are entertainment, an object of speculation and wagers. That night, you do not sleep. You lie on your hard bench, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the morning. Will you survive? Will you die? Will your death be quick? Or will you lie in the sand, bleeding and broken, while the crowd jeers? You think of your home, if you had one, of family you will never see again. You think of the gods, and you pray. To Mars, the god of war. To Fortuna, goddess of luck. To Nemesis, goddess of revenge and fate, a particular patron of gladiators. You ask them for strength, for courage, for the chance to see another sunrise. Dawn comes too quickly. You are roused, fed a quick breakfast, and then herded into wagons for transport to the amphitheater. Let us imagine the games are being held at the Colosseum in Rome, the greatest amphitheater in the world. As your wagon approaches, you see the massive oval structure rising before you. 4 stories of arches and columns, clad in travertine marble, gleaming white in the morning sun. It is both magnificent and terrifying. The wagon descends into the hippodrome, the network of tunnels and chambers beneath the arena floor. This is a subterranean world of corridors, cells, animal cages, and machinery. The noise from above is already deafening, thousands of voices echoing down through the stones. You are taken to a waiting cell. Your equipment is brought to you, and you begin to arm yourself. The armor is heavy, familiar from training but now laden with new significance. Each piece you put on brings you closer to the moment of truth. Other gladiators are doing the same, and the room is silent except for the clink of metal and the occasional muttered prayer. A guard arrives. It is time. You and several other fighters are led through the corridors to one of the gates that open onto the arena floor. You can hear the crowd more clearly now, a roar of anticipation. The gates open, and you walk up the ramp. The light is blinding after the darkness below. As your eyes adjust, you see the arena stretching before you. An oval of sand about 280 feet long and 175 feet wide. The sand is clean now, raked smooth, but you know it will soon be churned and stained. Rising all around you are the tiers of seats, packed with humanity. 50,000 people, all watching you. The lowest level, just above the arena wall, is occupied by the senators and wealthy elite, sitting on marble benches with cushions. Above them are the equestrians, the wealthy merchant class. Higher still are the ordinary citizens. And at the very top, in the cheapest seats closest to the sun, are the poor, the slaves, and the women who are generally confined to the upper tiers. At the north end of the arena, in a special imperial box, sits the sponsor of the games. If the emperor himself is present, he sits on a throne, dressed in purple, the ultimate authority. He is the editor, the one who will decide life or death. All the gladiators line up and march to the center of the arena. You perform the salute, raising your weapons and shouting the traditional phrase, Ave, Imperator, morituri te salutant. Hail, Emperor. Those who are about to die salute you. Though historians debate whether this phrase was used at every games or was specific to certain occasions, it captures the essence of the moment. The crowd roars its approval. The games begin, but not with your fight. The schedule of a typical day at the games follows a pattern. The morning is devoted to the venaciones, the beast hunts. Exotic animals are brought into the arena. Lions, bears, leopards, elephants, even giraffes and ostriches, and hunters, the venatores, fight and kill them. This is spectacle, demonstrating Rome's dominion over nature, its ability to bring the animals of the entire world to die for Roman amusement. At midday comes the worst part, the public executions. Criminals condemned to death, the noxii, are brought into the arena to be killed in various horrific ways. Some are simply executed, beheaded, or stabbed. Others are dressed as mythological figures and killed in ways that reenact famous myths. A man might be dressed as Icarus and thrown from a great height. Another might be cast as Hercules and burned alive. Still others are tied to posts and attacked by beasts, ad bestias, torn apart by lions or bears while the crowd eats lunch and chats. You watch this from below, and it makes you sick. You are a fighter, trained for combat. These people are simply murdered. There is no honor here, no contest, just cruelty and death. But this is Rome, and the line between justice and entertainment is thin. Finally, in the afternoon, the main event begins. The gladiatorial combats. The crowd's attention sharpens. This is what they came to see. You are called for the third fight of the afternoon. You and your opponent, a Thraex from another school, are led into the arena. The editor signals, and the fight begins. Everything you have trained for comes down to this moment. Your opponent circles you, light on his feet, his curved sword held ready, his small shield up. You move more slowly, conserving energy, your large shield protecting most of your body. He feints, testing you, then darts in, trying to slash at your exposed arm. You block with your shield and thrust with your gladius, but he's already moving. Too fast. The crowd roars with every exchange, cheering their favorites, screaming advice and insults. The fight is exhausting. The armor is heavy, the sun is brutal, and the sand shifts under your feet. Sweat pours down your body, stinging your eyes. Your breath comes in gasps. Your opponent scores a hit, his seeker slashing across your thigh. The pain is sharp and hot, and you feel blood running down your leg. The crowd screams with excitement, but the wound is not deep, not disabling. You press forward, using your larger shield to bull rush him, forcing him back against the arena wall. Now he cannot maneuver, and you have the advantage. You thrust, and your gladius punches through his shoulder, cutting muscle and sinew. He cries out and drops his sword. The fight is over. Your opponent collapses to his knees, his hand grasping your thigh in the gesture of submission. He looks up at the editor's box, his fate now in the hands of another. The crowd erupts, some shouting, "Yugular, Yugular! Kill, kill!" Others wave their handkerchiefs, shouting, "Mitte, mitte! Let him go, spare him." The editor looks at the crowd, gauging their sentiment. He's here to please them, after all. He looks at the defeated gladiator, assessing whether he fought bravely, whether he deserves mercy. The moments stretch out, agonizing. Finally, the editor extends his hand. His thumb is horizontal, the sign of mercy, missio. The gladiator will live. You step back, and attendants rush out to help your defeated opponent from the arena. He will be taken below, his wounds treated, and he will fight it another day. You have won. You salute the editor, and the crowd cheers. Attendants bring you a palm frond, the symbol of victory. If you continue to win, if you become famous, there will be prize money, perhaps even eventual freedom. But for now, you simply walk out of the arena, alive. Not every fight ends this way, of course. Sometimes the editor's thumb points down, the gesture of execution, pollis verso. When this happens, the defeated gladiator must accept death with courage. He kneels, steadies himself, and the victor delivers the killing blow. Usually a thrust through the throat or between the shoulder blades, aimed at the heart. The killing must be done correctly, efficiently, without hesitation. A clean kill is respected. A botched execution is shameful. When a gladiator dies, attendants dressed as Charon, the ferryman of the underworld, come out with a stretcher. They load the body and drag it out through the Porta Libidinensis, the gate of death. The body is taken to the spoliarium, a chamber beneath the arena where the armor is stripped off, to be reused, and the corpse is disposed of. Some bodies are claimed by family or fellow gladiators for proper burial. Others are simply thrown into mass graves. Life as a gladiator is short. Most gladiators die within a few years of their first fight. Studies of gladiator cemeteries show that the average age of death was in the mid-20s. But death does not always come in the arena. Some die from infected wounds, disease, or during training accidents. The life expectancy is grim, and everyone knows it. Yet there are exceptions. The survivors. Some gladiators become famous, their names known throughout the empire. They win fight after fight, building reputations as invincible warriors. Graffiti found in Pompeii celebrates famous gladiators. Celadus the Thraex, 3 times victor and 3 times crowned. The girl's heartthrob. Crescens the Retiarius, the net fighter, puparum nocturnarumque decus. The glory of the girls and the nighttime. These were the sports stars of their age, and they enjoyed the perks. Famous gladiators received better treatment, private cells, gifts from admirers, and sexual opportunities that would have been unthinkable for most slaves. They were celebrities, their images painted on walls, their faces on lamps and pottery. Some even had action figures, small clay or bronze figurines that children played with. But the fame came with a price. The more famous you became, the more pressure there was to keep fighting, to risk your life again and again for the crowd's pleasure. If a gladiator survived long enough and won enough fights, perhaps 20 or 30 victories, he might be granted the rudies, a wooden sword that symbolized his freedom and retirement from combat. The presentation of the rudies was a great honor, done publicly in the arena. A freed gladiator, a rudiarius, could leave the gladiatorial life. Some became trainers, using their experience to teach the next generation. Others opened businesses or lived quietly on their savings. A few became very wealthy, investing their winnings wisely. But many rudiarii could not stay away from the arena. The adrenaline, the crowd, the glory, these were addictive. Some voluntarily returned to fight, even after winning their freedom, a decision that baffled many Romans, but spoke to the strange psychology of men who had lived so long on the edge of death. The gladiatorial games were not just entertainment. They were a complex social institution that served multiple purposes in Roman society. They were a demonstration of Roman power and wealth. Only a rich and powerful civilization could afford to train men to fight, to import exotic animals, to build massive amphitheaters in cities across the empire. They were political tools. Sponsoring games was a way for ambitious men to win popular support. The crowd remembered who gave them spectacle, and they rewarded that person with votes and loyalty. They were a form of social control. The games provided an outlet for the aggression and frustration of the Roman mob. The satirist Juvenal famously complained that the Roman people, once guardians of political power, had given up their civic responsibility and now cared only for panemet bread and circuses, keep the people fed and entertained, and they would not revolt. The games also reinforced Roman values, though in a twisted way. The gladiators' courage, discipline, and acceptance of death echoed the values expected of Roman soldiers. The arena was a distorted mirror of the battlefield, a place where martial virtue could be displayed and celebrated. And in a strange way, the games were religious. They originated as funeral rites, munera, offerings to the dead. The blood spilled in the arena was a sacrifice, honoring the deceased and pleasing the gods. Over time, this religious aspect faded, and the games became pure entertainment. But the connection to death and the divine never entirely disappeared. But not all Romans approved of the games. Some philosophers and moralists condemned them as brutal and degrading. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote with disgust about attending the games and seeing men killed for no purpose other than to please the crowd. He described it as murder, nothing more. Early Christians also opposed the games, seeing them as symptomatic of Roman cruelty and paganism. Christian martyrs were themselves thrown into the arena, executed ad bestias or by gladiators, and this created a deep association between Christianity and opposition to the games. As Christianity grew in influence, the games came under increasing criticism. In 325 AD, the Emperor Constantine, the first Christian Roman emperor, banned gladiatorial games. Though the ban was not immediately effective, the games continued in various forms for decades. The last recorded gladiatorial fight took place in 404 AD, when a Christian monk named Telemachus jumped into the arena to stop a fight and was stoned to death by the angry crowd. The Emperor Honorius then issued a final ban, and the gladiatorial games ended, though beast hunts continued for another century. The great amphitheatres, built to last forever, slowly fell into ruin. The Colosseum was damaged by earthquakes, stripped of its metal fittings, and used as a quarry, its stones taken to build churches and palaces. By the Middle Ages, it was a romantic ruin, a reminder of Rome's lost glory and, to Christian eyes, its lost cruelty. Today, the Colosseum still stands, the most iconic symbol of ancient Rome. Millions of tourists visit each year, walking through the tunnels where gladiators once waited, standing on the arena floor where blood was spilled, and imagining the spectacle that once filled this space. We have learned much about gladiators from archaeology. Excavations at gladiatorial schools in Pompeii, destroyed and preserved by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, have revealed the layout of the barracks, the training areas, and even the remains of gladiators caught in the eruption. Studies of gladiator cemeteries have revealed details about their lives, their diets, their injuries, and their deaths. Forensic analysis of skeletons shows the brutal toll of combat, bones broken and healed multiple times, evidence of sword cuts and puncture wounds, and often signs of the fatal injury that ended their lives. We have graffiti, mosaics, and paintings that depict gladiators and celebrate their victories. We have literature, both celebrating and condemning the games. We have the massive amphitheatres themselves, hundreds of them scattered across the former Roman Empire, from Britain to North Africa, from Spain to Syria. And from all this evidence, we can reconstruct what it was like to be a gladiator, to live a life defined by violence, to be simultaneously despised and adored, to be property and yet, in some cases, wealthy and famous. The life of a gladiator was a contradiction. You were the lowest of the low, a slave or condemned criminal, stripped of all dignity and rights. Yet you could also achieve a kind of glory that most free Romans never knew. You were trained to kill, but you were also taught to perform, to entertain, to embody virtues that Roman society claimed to honor. You lived in constant danger, and yet, paradoxically, you received medical care and nutrition that many free poor Romans could not afford. You were an object, property to be bought and sold, and yet women of the highest classes might desire you. And always there was the sand, the arena, the roar of the crowd, and the knowledge that every fight might be your last. Some gladiators were bitter and angry, forced into this life and desperate to escape. Others embraced it, finding meaning and identity in the role of fighter. Still others were simply numb, going through the motions, surviving one day at a time. To be a gladiator in ancient Rome was to exist in a world that we can barely comprehend. A world where human life was cheap, where violent death was entertainment, and where the line between hero and victim was razor thin. It was a world of spectacle and cruelty, of courage and exploitation, a world that horrifies us even as it fascinates us. The gladiators are long gone, their bones dust, their names mostly forgotten, but their story endures. a dark mirror held up to Roman civilization, reflecting both its greatness and its inhumanity. And it reminds us that the appetite for violence as entertainment, the desire to watch others fight and suffer, is not as distant from our own world as we might like to believe. The gladiators fought and died so that Rome could be entertained. They were pawns in someone else's game, their lives expended for glory that was not their own. But they were also human beings who showed extraordinary courage, who fought for survival, for honor, and for the slim hope of freedom. Their story is tragic and brutal, but it is also, in its own way, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, even in the darkest of circumstances. And so, our journey into the world of the Roman gladiator comes to a close. We have walked through the training ground, entered the arena, and witnessed the violence and glory that define this brutal profession. It has been a true pleasure to be your guide through this harrowing chapter of history. Thank you for listening. Until our next journey into the past, I wish you a calm and peaceful night.